It's fair to say that Mitsubishi was in a bad spot for a number of years, but has come back in a really big way with the launch of the all-new Mitsubishi Outlander. Well, the car we're looking at today is not just any Outlander, this is something really special. This is the plug-in hybrid, or PHEV version of the Mitsubishi Outlander. And in this video, we're gonna do a full review of this car outside, inside, take it on a drive, and talk about a super unusual feature which just about no other plug-in hybrid has. Now let's talk about this car. What is the basic philosophy? Well, a plug-in hybrid means that it has a large high voltage battery which you can recharge at home or at a public charging station and then go 38 miles according to the EPA on a single charge. But unlike a traditional battery electric vehicle, when the battery dies, you still have a conventional 4-cylinder engine underneath the hood, which will propel you to a total of 420 miles when you combine gasoline and electric technologies. Now that is a long way. The advantage of this is you can plug in it at home and drive the vehicle on really cheap electricity for your daily basis, but then when you need to go on a road trip, fill it up with gasoline, 3-minute refill, and keep going for another few hundred miles. So let's start with that powertrain. Now this is not the first Outlander hybrid. The plug-in hybrid version of the previous Outlander launched globally in 2013 and came to the States starting in 2018. Now that vehicle went 24 miles on a single charge. This one goes 38. And this vehicle is really up on horsepower compared to the previous generation. So under the hood, as we mentioned, is that 4-cylinder engine, and the total system output, when you combine the gasoline engine with the hybrid technology, 249 horsepower. But the big news is 332 pound-feet of torque. And this is through a dual motor setup. So there's a motor in the front and a motor in the rear. Now let's kind of head back to the rear, because that's where, in my opinion, the big news about the Outlander lies compared to some of its competition. Now when the first Outlander plug-in hybrid launched, it had no competition really. It was one of the only plug-in hybrid SUV offerings. But now, of course, as we enter 2023, there's lots of other options out there for a small crossover plug-in hybrid, and probably this vehicle's biggest competitor is the RAV4 Prime. Now the RAV4 Prime does have more total horsepower. So this is 249, the RAV4 Prime has 302. But the philosophy is very different, because the RAV4 Prime uses a relatively small rear electric motor, 40 kilowatts, whereas the Outlander has a 100 kilowatt rear electric motor. So it's got a much larger rear motor and a slightly smaller front motor. Now, Mitsubishi says that when you combine this with the super all-wheel control, all-wheel drive system, this car is really tailored to offer safe yet exciting driving experiences that some of its competition doesn't offer. Now, even if you take the RAV4 Prime out of the equation, 249 horsepower and 332 foot-pounds of torque is still very, very, very impressive. And we're gonna get out on the road in a second to really experience what that means in the real world. The biggest innovation with the Outlander plug-in hybrid is the seating configuration. The Outlander plug-in hybrid comes standard as a 7-seater. The previous generation, 5-seater only if you wanted the hybrid version, but now 7-seater only as standard. And the only other vehicle in this class to offer a third row is the Hyundai plug-in hybrid, but that's a 6-seater, whereas this is a 7. Now, interestingly enough, the hybrid Outlander has a different seat folding mechanism compared to the internal combustion model. So the internal combustion model, the third row kind of just folds flat, but in the hybrid, it actually folds up in one move like that, and then pull this lever, and the seats back folds upward as such. Now, the interesting thing about this is that you'll notice this big kind of ravine behind the rear seat. And the plug-in hybrid model has more behind third row storage capacity than the gasoline one, which is really funky. But if you want a very efficient, very comfortable, very capable vehicle that offers 7 seats with that 38 miles of all-electric range, the Outlander hybrid is pretty much your only choice. Now let's talk about how you can keep this vehicle charged, because there are a couple of different ways to do so. Now the charging port is located over here on the right side of the vehicle. Push in, it pops open, And this is where things get really special. Now the level 1 and level 2 charging capability, the AC charging ability on this car is fairly limited. So you can charge it on a 120 volt outlet in roughly 10 hours or a 240 volt outlet in roughly 6.5 hours. Excuse the plane. We're right next to an airport here in Ann Arbor, Michigan at the Mitsubishi engineering facility. So 10 hours on 120 volt and then 6.5 hours on 240 volt, but the onboard charger is rated at 3.5 kilowatts, which I wish they would include a slightly faster version. So like the Toyota, you can get over 6 kilowatts as an option. But this is where Mitsubishi has a leg up over just about any other plug-in hybrid on the planet, because this car offers fast charging. That's right, you can actually plug in the Mitsubishi at a fast charger, a level 3 charger, and you know, max of 50 kilowatt DC fast charging, but they say 0 to 80% in 38 minutes. Now, what do you think about this in the comments section below? Someone fast charging a plug-in hybrid at a Electrify America, for example, they're saying the reason they offer this is to maximize the amount of time you spend driving this car on electric only. But then, of course, an EV driver might say, well, you don't really need to charge on a road trip. Why are you using a fast charger? So kind of an interesting social question going on there about opinion, but I think it's cool. I love that it's basically one of the only ones that currently offers fast charging. None of this vehicle's direct competitor offers it at all. And the other big improvement about this newest generation of Outlander compared to the previous one is the battery. So it's a 20 kilowatt hour battery, which is up significantly from the previous one, which I think was like 13.8 kilowatt hours. But the big deal about this generation is it's now liquid cooled. So they have much better climate control on the batteries, which should help extend its life. Now let's hop inside and kind of show some of the cool features on the inside of this Outlander. This one, by the way, is a 40th anniversary. And one of the things that means is if you look up top, this optional bronze roof, which I think is such a cool touch. I really, really like that. Now, as we come on the inside, lots of comfort, lots of luxury in here, and we got to start with the quality of materials. So much better than the outgoing Outlander, and the overall design is just beautiful. Like, look at this door panel. It's just stunning with this stitching. This kind of diamond pattern there is beautiful. You actually see that on the seats as well. If you look down, like the seats has this diamond stitching, and this contrasting bronze or orange finish on the black is a very nice touch. Considering this is a vehicle and a brand which is not known for all that luxury, we're not far off a very premium offering from a brand like Mercedes or Lexus. I mean, I take that really seriously. I'm not saying that lightly, but this is one heck of an interior from a quality standpoint. And let's go ahead and start the vehicle. Now, we don't have the full pricing information currently. We do know the starting price is, what, 38 and some change. So 38,845, I think. Just under $39,000. Now that is a few $1,000s up compared to the outgoing model, which started at like 36.2. But on the inside, I mean, it just feels so much better. This one is the 40th anniversary edition. By the way, what was the first vehicle Mitsubishi as a nameplate sold here in the US? There were 4 of them. I'll give you 3 of them. There was the Mighty Max, which was a pickup truck. There was the Tredia, which was a sedan. The Starion, and then there was one more. If you can tell me the name of the other vehicle Mitsubishi sold brand new here in the US 40 years ago, I'll give you a cookie. Not really, but I'll be impressed. Now, standard in the Mitsubishi Outlander is this digital instrument cluster, and it's configurable. So check this out. One of the coolest parts is you can change the meter view from a more conventional dial style to what I call the fighter jet. Oh, that looks so cool with these kind of barrel-like displays. But apart from that, we also have a 9-inch screen. The base model is going to have an 8-inch screen. This one fully loaded, 9-inch. And by the way, fully loaded, they're predicting right around $50,000. And one other kind of thing we need to discuss when we talk about fully loaded equipment. So the previous generation Outlander plug-in was able to qualify for the full $7,500 tax credit. Well, under the new bill, they've revised that whole system completely. This vehicle's made in Japan, so it no longer qualifies for the tax credit, which is a little bit of a shame and definitely something worth noting. Now, of course, the Outlander is built in conjunction with Nissan, right? It's got a similar platform to the Rogue. So this infotainment system is very similar to what you'd find on the latest generation of Rogue, which is to say very good, very easy to use. And my favorite part about this is the colors. Let me go to an XM screen and you can really see what I mean. Look at how vibrant and just kind of bright and lively that screen is. Plus, I love that it incorporates both volume and tune knobs, which is something I kind of take for granted for in 2022, but I can't because a lot of vehicles don't, and it's great to have that satisfaction. Now, we do have some piano black finish still, like there across the dash, and then, of course, down here in the middle, which I'm not a huge fan of, and I don't really love how they incorporated this 40th anniversary badge here. Kind of sticks on. Now this is a pre-production model. Maybe the final version will be a little bit different, but it doesn't feel very good there. We do have the wireless charger up front, nice and centered, easy to use, and pretty sizable for those of you that have larger screens. USB-A and USB-C connectivity down there, and then above that, the full range of climate controls, automatic heated steering wheel. We got heated seats, no ventilated seats. However, one fun fact about the PHEV is that the hybrid you can get with massaging front seats in a Mitsubishi. Imagine that, massaging front seats. Let's open up the shade to the panoramic sunroof that glides open, and then we'll push it one more time to continue it over the rear seats. Looks really good. We've got large cup holders in charge down here in the middle, and then as we lift up the center armrest, we do find some storage capacity in there. Now let's talk about the plug-in hybrid specific functions and buttons. So, drive selector, park versus neutral drive, and then B is for some of the different regen modes. So this vehicle has 6 really regen modes, which you control using the paddle shifters. And if I kind of poke my way through the center here, why are they not showing up? Let me go to change meter. Get out of the steering assist page. Oh, there they are. So you can see B1, B0. B0 is basically no off accelerator regen all the way up through B5, which is the most. And then there's also a 1 pedal-ish mode. I say ish because it doesn't go to a complete stop, which is right down here. It's called innovative pedal. You can engage that, and that is going to slow you down quickly. And we'll talk about that here shortly in the driving section of the video. Now, of course, you can control the different regen modes using the paddle shifters, and typically paddle shifters, of course, control transmission gears. This vehicle does not have a transmission, so to speak. It does not have a CVT, it does not have a planetary gear set. It really is direct drive from the engine to the wheels. And then, of course, you've got the electric motors in between, which is cool. By the way the battery works is 20 kilowatt hours. In EV mode, you use about 83% of the battery, but the car is smart enough to leave about a 17% buffer. So target 17 driving around on gasoline. So if you accelerate, if you are merging onto a highway, right, you always have access to all the acceleration, which is a really smart and kind of thoughtful thing. So you're never like, even if you kill the battery, it's not going to be a slow dog. It's still going to accelerate with a lot of confidence. Now, speaking of different drive modes, control them down here. We'll talk about it in the drive, but we have normal, EV, save, and charge. And then we also have different kind of terrain modes. So we got mud, we got snow, gravel, tarmac, normal, power, and eco. And that can change the steering configuration and the accelerator configuration as well, depending on the different modes. So let me go ahead and put this vehicle into park, turn it off, and we'll see what the rear seat seating is like. The other cool thing about this vehicle is it does come with a heat pump, which is a very efficient way to heat the cabin, and it works down to about 3 degrees Celsius. I'll put the conversion of Fahrenheit on the screen here. And then below that, of course, the gasoline engine can supplement additional heating. Now, I am told that there is a thermal limit to how cold it can be while running the vehicle on EV mode. Somewhere around like -5 or -10 degrees C. I'll put the conversion below. And then you have to run it on gasoline. And another fun thing too is to keep the gasoline systems in check, right? If you run this car on EV for several months, after I think they said 3 months, they'll make you do a maintenance cycle where the engine will kick on for roughly a third of a gas tank to make sure that it's still working, make sure the gas isn't getting stale. Kind of fun plug-in hybrid things, and that's a consideration, right? If you're just commuting in this vehicle, you may never touch the gasoline engine, so they need to make sure every few months they run the engine, keep things like nice and fresh. Now in the back seat here, we have heated seats, we have a little bit of climate control, pretty decent legroom. I'm pretty tall, the seat is basically all the way back. Now, headroom wise, 6 feet tall. I do run into slight headroom issues with the big panoramic sunroof. And let's go ahead and check out the third row, because that is a big consideration for people looking to buy this crossover. So seat does slide. I'm gonna try to access it here. By the way, these blue floor mats with this little outline, that's unique to the plug-in hybrid. And, well, it's a little bit tight, especially in headroom. It's actually quite tight on headroom. The good news for legroom, though, is that these seats are slidable forward and backwards. So I have just enough room. You want to give me the camera, Zach? Yeah, sure. I have just enough room in the back here for my legs. But then, of course, that person is going to be struggling. So it's a really... Do you want to try to put the seat back, Zach?
Yeah.
Okay, that's good. Yep, I'm flat out of room, and that person's not much better. So it's a very small third row, but it's really intended for kids or for emergencies. So is it a Tahoe? It is not a Tahoe back here, obviously. But for kids or in an absolute pinch, you could probably make it work. Now, speaking of a couple other things, let's go back to the trunk for just a second. We'll show that folding mechanism one more time. The floor is a little different height-wise for interior passenger room compared to the gasoline Outlander. Let's see how easy it is to fold. So first, we're going to put down these headrests. Second, we're going to pull this lever, and then I'm missing number 3. Here's number 3. Engage that, and then the whole thing will tumble. One thing I like back here is the 1500 watt power outlet. 1500 is very beefy. I really appreciate that they're giving you that much output in the rear for camping, for accessories, that kind of thing. And then we can also fold the second row, pull that lever. Oh, it crashed into the front seat. We could scoot those forward. And it's also worth noting too, kind of the way these work, right? It's not a 60-40 split. It's more of like a, what do they describe it as? A 20-40-20? 40-20-40? 40-20-40, that's the split. Now I am told that this vehicle will have a tow capacity, although they're still working on the final numbers on that. And you can see that this one is not equipped for it, but it will be able to tow at least a small load. All right, with that out of the way, let's go ahead and take it for a drive. All right, so we are behind the wheel of the new Outlander plug-in hybrid, and we're gonna give you a quick first impression on how it drives. Now, this vehicle does come equipped with a number of drive modes, a number of regen modes, and there is a lot going on. So we're gonna try to break it down and make it super simple. Now, let's start with the different powertrain modes. So if we push this little EV button, we can cycle through normal, EV, save, and charge. Now, normal mode is going to be the default setting. That's just cruising along. It's going to try and prioritize the electric setting, but then of course the battery state of charge becomes low enough, it'll kick on the gas engine, and it's kind of supposed to be smart and know exactly what the most efficient way to drive the car is. We can also lock it into EV mode, where it'll retain the electric drive only until you really need the gas engine. For example, if you push the throttle all the way to the floor, or if the battery dies, it's going to go into gasoline. And then there's a save mode. So typically PHEVs are more efficient driving on the highway steady state with the gas engine, and in the save mode, it's going to retain the current battery state of charge so you can use it for later. For example, like if you hit a city, you can click it in EV mode. And then there's even a charge setting. So if the battery is depleted, but you want to put some energy back into the battery using the gasoline engine, stick it in charge mode, and that will allow you to do that. Now, the mode I'm most excited about is EV. So we're going to engage the electric mode and see how it drives. Now, the motor ratings are 100 kilowatts in the rear and 85 kilowatts in the front, which is up significantly from the previous Outlander. And especially around town, if you give it the beans, like, it gives you a nice little jolt of acceleration. It certainly is not blistering by any point, and as you hit like the 40-50 mile an hour speed range, it certainly slows down quite a bit. But if you're putting around town, I think certainly there is enough punch to zip you in front of traffic, especially from a stop. Another thing about this system is in electric mode, because this is a dual motor setup, it's all-wheel drive all the time. So there's never a point in the Outlander PHEV where you're running on just the front motor or just the rear motor. It's always working to maximize stability, traction, and safety. And it's got loads of algorithms and brains way smarter than I can understand, which will determine how much power to give each motor, but at no point, even on the highway, is it only front-wheel drive or only rear-wheel drive. It's always all-wheel drive. Now let's talk about the different regen modes. Now in standard drive mode, you are able to regen using the brake pedal. So when you hit the brake, it does indicate that you are charging the battery, and it's a blended braking system, so the harder you hit it, obviously it'll engage the friction brake. So you can drive it like a normal vehicle where you let off and it coasts, but there are a lot of different regen modes if you want to kind of lean toward more of the one pedal driving experience. So you adjust the regen modes using the paddle shifters, and you control it from B1 all the way up to B5, and B5 is going to be the most regen. Now of course that's going to change a little bit depending on the state of charge in your battery, and in B5 mode you let off the accelerator and it does slow you down as it puts energy back into the battery, but it's not as dramatic as some of this vehicle's competitors. And it won't bring you to a complete stop, so it'll bring you to right around 3 miles an hour or so. Now, say you do want more of a one pedal driving experience. Well, the Outlander does offer that with this little button down here by the shifter. Now, this is called the innovative pedal mode, and this is an interesting concept. So it doesn't give you any more electrical regen. It's got the same effect as running it in B5, but it'll actually activate the friction brakes as well to slow you down quicker. And this is much more one pedal than B5. B5 you could probably run around town with minimal application of the friction brakes, but with this innovative pedal mode, when you let off the accelerator, it slows down pretty quickly with a lot of confidence, and you could run this almost to a complete stop as a true one pedal system. It's just a little bit unusual that it's not adding any more energy into the battery. It's the same amount of energy as B5 with friction brakes. Now from a driving experience standpoint, the Mitsubishi Outlander PHEV is not all that different from the standard ICE model, and that is such a good thing because this car brings a huge level of refinement, comfort to a relatively affordable price point. I mean, if you look around the interior with the pleated leather and the dual pane front windows and all the tech, this isn't far off what, you know, a luxury brand would offer, except you're paying significantly less. And that is something which I think we don't often associate with Mitsubishi. Maybe that's a topic which we associate now a lot with like Mazda, but Mitsubishi has stepped up their game in about 1,000 ways with the new Outlander, and the Outlander PHEV takes it up a notch with the added quietness of the electrical architecture. Okay, we're coming up to a roundabout. We'll see how the chassis dynamics are, see how the handling is. We're not going to go full rally on you because I don't want to, you know, throw all my passengers into the side of the vehicle. But yeah, is it a sports car? Absolutely not. Is there a lot of steering feel? Absolutely not. But like it's a 3-row crossover, right? What you want it to do is tackle these Michigan roads with comfort. And even on these 20-inch wheels, which most Outlander PHEVs are going to have, it's really pretty good. I know that they put a lot of time into chassis calibration and especially into the suspension to make this vehicle a comfortable, serene place to be. And it's really hard to do that when you put 20-inch wheels, which is kind of unusual for this class. If you want an 18, it will come on the base spec, but most of them are going to have 20s. And don't worry, it doesn't seem to have that much of an effect on ride quality. All right, so I'm going to change not the powertrain mode, but the drive mode. Stick it in power. It's going to kick on the gasoline engine. Let's give it some beans. Yeah, it's pretty good. So over 330 pound-feet of torque, and it's not quite as like visceral as the RAV4 Prime, but it certainly does add a level of excitement to the Outlander, which I think it really needed. Like, I call the standard Outlander a reverse Hellcat, right? Where you're paying all the money to Hellcat for the engine, but the rest of it's kind of like a shopping cart. This is the opposite, right? In a standard Outlander, you pay for the cool leather and for the luxuries, but then the engine's, you know, it's an engine. Whereas the Outlander PHEV brings some excitement into the equation with, you know, nearly 250 horsepower and over 300 pound-feet of torque. The Mitsubishi Outlander plug-in hybrid will be for sale starting in November of this year, with orders opening on October 12th. Now, I think that this is a very attractive package. The exterior design is certainly a little polarizing, but the interior quality and the features it offers feel very good. Plus 38 miles of range is nearly best in class. Not quite as good as like the RAV4 Prime, which is rated at 42, but then again, this does have that third row, which you can use in a pinch. When you combine that with the fact that most of the Outlanders have these 20-inch wheels, although an 18-inch wheel is standard, and the 65 mpge, it is a pretty attractive little vehicle. If you wanted like an alternative to a Palisade or maybe a Telluride that's a little bit more affordable that you can run on electricity alone, maybe check out the Mitsubishi Outlander plug-in hybrid. Let me know what you guys think in the comments section below. A huge thank you to Zach behind the camera and Mitsubishi for flying us out here to Ann Arbor to experience this new vehicle, and we'll see you in the next episode.